And welcome back to Hannity's America. Well, I guess CBS News just can't get their act together. Now, a week ago, their long-running news show, 60 Minutes, aired a story that probably had global warming alarmists jumping for joy. Too bad, it was all wrong. Last week, 60 Minutes reran a story claiming that there are massive changes in the climate of Antarctica. And guess what? Global warming is to blame. On its website, CBS says the piece, which originally aired in April of this year, was updated on August the 14th, just before the re-air. There's just one problem. Transcripts of the two airings show the updated 60-minute segment is exactly the same as the original one. No changes were made whatsoever. Did CBS somehow miss that earlier this month, NASA changed their temperature models to reflect a huge mistake in their calculations? The new corrected figures now show the warmest year on record to be 1934, not 1998, which was widely publicized by global warming alarmists. In fact, 5 of the 10 warmest years on record now all occur before World War II. This fact flies in the face of global warming alarmists who insist SUVs and private jets have been raising the Earth's temperature. But the most important update that CBS neglected to make is one that they were highly criticized for after the first airing of this very same piece. University of Maine scientist Paul Majewski is featured in the 60 Minutes story talking about global warming. But the piece never mentioned the fact that Majewski's work in Antarctica includes finding a potential link between changes in solar activity and the Earth's climate. It turns out his findings point to data from Greenland and the Canadian Yukon that also suggest similar relationships between solar activity and the atmosphere in the Northern Hemisphere. After receiving heavy criticism for that omission after the first airing, you'd think that 60 Minutes' so-called updated version of the story would be corrected. Granted, the journalistic standards at CBS have come under fire before. Can you say Texas Air National Guard? But millions of viewers still consider 60 Minutes a news program. But most of us remember the huge CBS blunder back in 2004 when veteran reporter Dan Rather ran with a story about the president's military service. Rather, the network's top newsman jumped at a chance to slam President Bush during his presidential campaign against Democratic candidate John Kerry. In the end, Rather had to apologize when he could not substantiate the claims of his source. The debacle was a major black eye for CBS, and the network has struggled to regain credibility ever since. Along those lines, CBS established their own watchdog called Public Eye, where reporters and producers are supposed to be held accountable for their journalistic decisions. Scott Pelley, the reporter on the global warming piece, has been producing segments on climate change for 60 Minutes since last year. After a second story, the Public Eye asked Pelley why he doesn't present both sides of the global warming debate. He said, quote, "If I do an interview with Elie Wiesel, am I required as a journalist to find a Holocaust denier?" When asked why he didn't speak to any respected scientists who don't believe in man-made global warming, Pelley said he couldn't find one. Oh, really? Here on Hannity's America, we're finding more scientists every day who disagree with the climate change alarmists like Pelley. But perhaps the most telling comment from the so-called journalist came when Pelley was asked why he didn't at least try to present the views of many Americans who don't believe in global warming. He said, quote, "There becomes a point in journalism where striving for balance becomes irresponsible." Pelley made that outrageous statement over a year ago. So why is CBS News still airing the work of a blatantly biased reporter? Even Newsweek backtracked on their rhetoric after their abysmal cover story 3 weeks ago. Contributing editor Robert Samuelson has since skewered the story that claimed, quote, well-coordinated, well-funded campaign by contrarian scientists, free market think tanks, and industry has created a paralyzing fog of doubt around climate change, unquote. He called the story, quote, a wonderful read, marred only by its being fundamentally misleading, unquote. He also said Newsweek's, quote, denial machine is a peripheral and highly contrived story. Newsweek implied, for example, that ExxonMobil used a think tank to pay academics to criticize global warming science. Actually, this accusation was long ago discredited, and Newsweek should not have lent it respectability. Better late than never. As for 60 Minutes, they should have known better than to air incorrect and outdated information. Didn't they learn anything from Dan Rather? Well, apparently not. And coming up,